Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name's Jen with Sloat Garden Center. Welcome to our webinar on citrus pruning with Elizabeth Ruiz. I know this is a really popular one, and so we're really looking forward to everything that she has to share. I'm going to talk a little bit while people are sort of filing in. First of all, I have a poll going. If you can take a moment while we're waiting to fill out the poll, we want to get some information before Elizabeth's presentation. And also, I do want to apologize again. I've gotten several emails about Elizabeth's webinar on azalea, camellia, hydrangea pruning. It's completely my fault. I deleted it. I thought it was going to the iCloud and it went on my computer and I deleted it because I thought it was on the iCloud and then I couldn't recover it. And I spent a whole week with Zoom trying to find it and it's gone. So we'll have her back and she'll do that seminar, or she'll definitely do that webinar again. And I'm really sorry that happened, a little glitch in the system, but I'm learning, every week more and more. So we'll just move on from that. Okay. As far as any questions that you might have, drop them into the Q&A. We will have, we will take time at the end of her presentation to address most of the questions. So she's got a lot of information and will most likely cover a lot of your questions throughout her presentation, but anything that we don't cover, we'll go through at the end. I just want to say that next week we're going to take a break due to the holidays. So we won't have any class next Saturday, but the Saturday after that will be tomatoes. So, I mean, we're in it. This is spring. We're starting it. So this is a great time of the year and super exciting and a lot of fun stuff. So tomatoes will be April 10th with Dan Alexander. And then after that will be Insect ID with Suzanne Bontempo. And then we're also excited to have on April 24th, Attracting Native Pollinators with Joan Pont. So a lot of fun classes coming up. All right, let's get started because I know it's a really nice day and we want to get out for a hike or something or get in the garden. And Elizabeth has a lot of great information to share. So Elizabeth, thank you again so much. I really appreciate having you present for us and I look forward to everything you have to share.
Thank you. Okay, well, hello everybody. Thank you for being here on this beautiful Saturday. My name again is Elizabeth Ruiz and my little company is called Go With Nature. You have my website there, gowithnature.net. So I am going to talk about citrus pruning. And one of the things that I do want to say is we separate citrus pruning from fruit tree pruning just because timing. So, when we are talking about a fruit tree pruning, we talk about apples and plums and apricots, persimmons, and all of them are deciduous plants that we usually prune in winter and summer. And citrus is pruned in different time because the growing cycle is different. So that is why we are separating them. Also, because they react a little bit different to the pruning and they grow a little bit different to other plants. And I am going to have few samples for that. So, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the plant needs. I think we all know that citrus, they do like the full sun, the hot weather. They don't like windy conditions. So if you have a plant that maybe at certain times of the year will grow, I have 3 citrus plants in my deck. From winter to early spring, the plants were full of leaves. And over here it started getting really windy in the whole summer and fall. And in summer and fall, they will lose all the leaves. So I knew that windy conditions was not good for the plants, and I tried to move them around, but it didn't work. So it have all the sun that they needed it. It have all the water that I could put on them, fertilizing and everything, but the wind was really stressful for them. So be mindful of that. If you have a plant that grows and do really good and then loses their leaves and gets all thin out and they don't produce a lot of maybe fruit, you see the flower, but you don't see the fruit, it can be about wind. So then we have frost protection. So that is one of the other things that we have to be mindful about citrus. And that is why also we do the pruning at this time of the year. So frost citrus are from hotter climates. So if the temperatures drop below 32, not only the plant will suffer, but the fruit also will suffer. They don't have that system physiological to protect themselves from cold weather. So we actually have to do it. So you can do it by creating a good microclimate for them, meaning you can plant them like having some protection from with big trees. Then we have I have, for example, an orange that no matter how cold it is, that orange is always super green, producing and growing. And it's because it is close to the house. And also, one of the things that I have realized is, when you do your laundry, you have that fan, little exhaust from the dryer. Well, citrus love that. If you have a space where you have that fan going out, if you put a citrus there, you're gonna have a citrus happy forever. So, you can create your little microclimates with things like the fan exhaust from your dryer, from your laundry. And then the other thing is you can cover with a blanket. So they sell these blankets that are kind of like paper thin blankets that you can put on top of the trees when it's gonna get really cold. The one suggestions I give to people when the trees are really big or when they don't want to deal with anything else is maybe if you know that it's going to be cold at night or the next day, put lots of water in the plant and in the soil, and that prevent the plant from actually getting hurt from frost, having a frost bite. I couldn't believe when I find about this, but it actually works really well. So some people also say Christmas lights. So, okay. The other thing that we want to be, so from frost, that is one of my determinations of when I prune. So my pruning is done related to my pruning, and actually fertilizing is a little bit related to that frost protection I'm trying to keep in mind. So if I see that it's gonna be cold, I am not gonna prune, or I am not gonna fertilize at that time, because what happens is if I encourage new growth, the new growth is gonna suffer from any cold weather easier than the well-established growth. So drainage is really important for citrus trees. I do have to say that right now, the citrus that we get, most of them are grafted, and I'm gonna show what I mean with that, the graft. And so what happened is the lower section, the roots are one part of the tree that the root system is adjusts better to bad drainage or really clay soils. So we are not having as much problems as before with citrus about that. But if you have a plant that show a lot of wilting, wilting can be too much water, but it can also be too little water. So you have to look at many conditions for that. But so the wilting you see growing, but a lot of wilting, no curling of the leaf, but just wilting, kind of like depressed looking. That can be too much water. So drainage is really important. If you have clay soils, one of the things that most gardeners and people in the field suggest is planting a mountain. So like that, the root system is still, you don't want your plant to be below the soil level line, because when it rains or when the water goes, it's gonna go and sit, it's gonna go to that hole generated by lower planting. And then you're gonna have more problems with drainage. Fertilizing, I do have to say that, you know, evergreens, you can fertilize evergreen throughout the year. And the only reason why I say don't fertilize in winter is just if you live in an area or your tree is in a microclimate or in a spot that is really susceptible to frost. Rather than that, you can fertilize any time of the year. And because the citrus do like to be fertilized. So I will say fertilize if you need it. But like, for example, a lot of the times you see that your trees get yellow and you see different yellowings, different type of yellowings. So that is a lot of nutrient deficiencies. And I'm gonna talk a little bit more about in the next slide. And then we have pests and disease that we wanna be aware of. Most of the things that the citrus have problems with pests and disease will be the leaf miner. They usually start attacking the plant right now, and we produce these little, actually I don't have a slide about that, leaf miners and scales, and are things that go, the citrus get attacked a lot. And you wanna and the way to prevent this is by having a more open and airy tree. So be aware of that. So for the leaf deficiency, for the nutrient deficiency, we have few different ones that I wanna show here. Most of the times we wanna be aware of the nitrogen in the plants. So right now, due to cold weather, some of the citrus, especially like the grapefruit, they had the tendency to get a little bit in the yellow, and that is okay. It's temperature, and you wanna be aware of that. But if your tree getting harder, is keep being in this type of yellow, all the trees yellow, it starts with the yellow in the older leaves, and then start getting the new leaves come green and then become yellow. So then that means in nitrogen deficiency. And so if you select, well, I'm gonna go through the whole slide of nutrient deficiencies, and then I show the products. So because the symptoms are really close together, you really wanna look at which leaves are getting yellow and where the yellow is presenting, pretty much. So the magnesium deficiency, you see like this V shape in the leaf. So the yellow, it starts in the outer sections, and then the last section that is green is at the tip of the petiole. So you wanna make sure that you identify, usually you get it appears in the mature leaves, and in the younger leaves it starts normal, and then you start seeing the yellowing. The iron deficiency is a more even distributed kind of like yellowing in the leaf. The whole veins are green, so you want to make sure that you don't confuse them. The zinc and the iron are something that people confuse a lot. The way that differentiate is the the thickness of the venation. So you can see that these ones are a little bit like yellow distributed all the way around. This one is a really strong venations with green. Both of them occurs in the new growth. So with time, if all these diseases, but of these deficiencies become a long-term deficiencies, get to be harder to identify because the whole leaf start losing color. And so it's important that you identify it like right away and fix the problem right away. The ones that affect production will be the zinc and the potassium, because and the iron. Those really affect the production of the fruit in the long term. So right now we're gonna talk about the products, and I put here as at the store, because I prepared like a list of products that you can use. So the first is the fertilizing. So this is one of the fertilizers you can buy, of course. It says citrus and fruit tree food. The important thing that you wanna see is the numbers here. So you see 733. These numbers show you the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and the potassium. And so you wanna have a fertilizer that have the 3 numbers. They usually, for fruit trees, they put a lot of more of the nitrogen on it because that is what consume the most. If sometimes I have potted plants that I want to produce or have a problem with a citrus, that when I put this fertilizer for citrus specifically, they become good, become green, but not fully. I try to do this one, which is a Celia Camellia fertilizer. I know it doesn't say citrus, but this one actually really helps because citrus need a little bit of acidity, not too much, but a little bit. And this stimulates that. So this is, and it is a little bit more even, it's 553. So it will help for greenery and for flowers. So I would say those two are something that I use a lot for citrus in general. Then with the deficiencies, one of the things, even though I talk about identify your deficiency according with the symptoms, one of the things I want you to realize is that the nutrients need to be kind of like mixed together for the plant to be able to take it. So if you have a magnesium deficiency or a potassium deficiency, it's better to get something like this. That is a combination. So this is sulfur, potassium, and magnesium all together in one. So like that, they will all of them help. One help the other one to be absorbed. So it helps for absorption of the nutrients. So I have another one here, for example. This is one that is by itself for the iron. You can see it's only iron. But I usually get this one because iron and zinc deficiency look so similar. So this one actually help for both of them. So in a way, it's good that you find out what deficiency is, but in the other hand, you don't want to put just a nutrient. You want to put a combination of those nutrients. So so this one is something that I actually use, and you can use this one for potting. I use this one a lot when I have plants that are having problems in the pots. And maybe I put this 2 times in a row, let's say 1 month and then another month. And then I go with this one. I go with the Acelia Camellia fertilizer. Why? Because it's a little bit even. So I have 5, 5, 3. So what is happening is I'm giving all the micronutrients as well as the major nutrients. If I have citrus, had the tendency to, if you planted your citrus, it can be, I was just talking to Jen about it, it can be 3 to 5 years for them to get established. And sometimes they just, the root system gets, you can see that it's established, it doesn't move and it's not loose, but the plant is not growing much. And maybe it's green, but it doesn't grow in length. So it's about getting established. So usually when I say to people is, when you plant your tree, you wanna, of course, you wanna put half and half of your soil. So pretty much you do half of the original soil and you put half compost or amendment with it, mix it, don't make layers. And you can put something like the shoot start or the mycorrhiza. So these two are good when you're planting to put it in the hole of the soil, because these ones help for the soil structure and the microbes and the fungi in the soil. So it actually doesn't help the tree as much as fertilizer, even though they do have a little bit of those micronutrients. The whole idea with these two is that it helps the soil for the plant to get established, and then it helps the roots. That is how it helps the root system, and hence helps the plant. So again, oh, and this one I forgot to put it in the list, but this is a mycorrhiza. I am actually putting this one in plants that are already, like if the plant is taking the fertilizer that I'm putting and it goes back to yellow after 3 months or 4 months and go back to green and go back to yellow according with my fertilizer. So one of the things I try to do is put a little bit of this around the plant or in the pot at the top and try to dig it a little bit, maybe like this much in, because what this does is this helps the microbes, and it also helps the plant to take those nutrients. So sometimes when we unbalance the pH or we leach the soil, the plant cannot take the nutrients. So when we put the fertilizer, they take it, but the rest of the time they cannot take it. So then if that is the problem that you are seeing with your plant, what you want to do is you want to start treating the soil. And when you are treating the soil, you're going to treat the soil with something like that, or you can just put compost. So if you put compost, you want to put a compost that is kind of like a really, one of the things I want to say is if you put compost and it has a lot of manure and it's fresh manure, your citrus is going to taste a little bit different. If you put it, like, for example, in the middle of summer, or, you know, when the fruit is getting ripened, you don't want to put a lot of manure at that time, just because it will change the flavor of the fruit. But you can put compost anytime. Just make sure that if you put chicken manure or cow manure, they are more aged. I don't know if that's the word, but it's more aged, it's not fresh. The one thing I also do when trees are having problems, like you put fertilizer that they don't change and they don't get green. One of the things I try to do is working in the soil a little bit. I put a little bit of the lime, agricultural lime, because it helps with that release of soften that clay if you have really thick clay. So this will make the soil basic if you put too much. So you want to try to be aware of what are you putting and how that will change the pH. So if you decided, well, I'm gonna put some of this because my soil is the agricultural lime, and because my soil is too clayish and too like thick, stick together, clumps to stick together. So maybe you are gonna start putting something with a little bit more acidity for your fertilization. So you go back to putting your soil in the right balance. Any questions about, just really quick questions, any questions about fertilization?
Hi, okay, yes, this has already been a lot of awesome information. How quick do you, once you fertilize with the liquid fertilizer, do you start seeing the results pretty quick, right?
Yeah. You wanna see the results pretty quick if it's the liquid, like in a month or something. You wanna see. The one thing is certain deficiencies. If it's in the older leaves, certain deficiencies, I don't remember which one it is, but some of them, the leaf just stays how it is. You wanna check is in your new growth. Always, so that's what I always tell my clients. When you put the fertilizer, look at your new growth. Your new growth is gonna tell you if they are liking it, they are being able to take it, and they are doing good. Not the older growth, because the older growth, the plant puts the energies in the new growth.
Yeah, and then also a good question and a good reminder. Somebody asked about how to apply the fertilizer, if you should water the soil first before you apply it, or kind of mix it in, or what's the most effective?
So usually what I do is, so I put water, then I put the fertilizer, and then I water it in again. And the reason why I do that is because some of the nutrients, they don't move too easily. Like nitrogen moves really fast. So that's why you find a leaching of the soil, So, but like, for example, I think it's phosphorus, that phosphorus doesn't move. So if you put it and you don't water it, or you put it next in one section where the irrigation doesn't go, so your nutrients are not going to the plant. The nutrients are just sitting there. So what I usually do is I water, and then that helps me for the water to actually, for the soil to be already wet, and the nutrients to be able to move faster and get to the plant when I water the second time. So I usually do that. And I try to fertilize according with the directions, because some of the fertilizers are like a strong, like less concentrated than other ones.
Yeah, that was another question, how often? And it depends on if you're doing liquid or you're doing granular. And really pay attention to the instructions on the bag. Also, synthetic fertilizer is different than organic fertilizer, and so you really want to be sure that you're paying attention to the instructions. So
yeah, one of the things about the EV Stone organic fertilizers, I don't usually say to people to tilt a lot, because you are destroying a lot of the feeders. So all the plants have the root system, and it's like branches. They have like a main thing, and then the feeders are at the tips, and they are the wide roots. And so when you tilt, you don't want to tilt too deep the fertilizers. But with this one, if you put them at the top and leave them at the top, like for example, I used this one, and I ended up molding. So what I did is, maybe I tilt this much. I tilted and I put soil on top. So like that I know, and then I water. So like that I know, don't just put a bunch or put a big clump. So because then it will not penetrate. But yes, kind of like follow the instructions. I do have to say that for potting, you are gonna be fertilizing kind of like often or regularly, versus plants that are already established, like has been 10 years. So in that case, I only fertilize when I see the plant is needed. And actually some of my pictures is one garden that it has not been fertilized for a long time. And so you're gonna see a lot of that yellow in the whole class. So be aware of that.
Great, thanks so much. We have more questions, but I'll save them to the end. Thank you.
That is my alarm. Okay, so share the screen. Oh, this happens again. Okay, so when to prune? So, oh, I forgot about the one thing about the products is for the pest and disease, because with the citrus, we had a lot of the flowers throughout the year. We want to make sure that we are being kind of like friendly with any pests that we are trying to control and nature and the beneficial insects. So one of the things that I am recommending, and this is me and my recommendations of the things I like to use. I'm not saying that the other ones are worse or that these ones are better. It's just, you know, go with nature has a philosophy and is be nice and kind with Mother Nature. So I use one of the products I use for control pests like a scale and whiteflies, anything like that will be the Captain Jack. This is really good insect repellent, and this one also the organocide. I use it a lot. Is bee friendly. Those two I know are friendly with the beneficial insects. So if I have any problems with pests, and this one is a fungicide, so this one actually had the three things. It's a 3-in-1. But anyway, those are the two things that I use to control pests in the garden that I forgot to mention. I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen. Okay, so now when to prune. So one of the things I do is, again, when I am pruning, I try to look at my plant, look at the needs, look at the cycle of the plant, and from there I decide how to prune. I used to joke about it being the lazy pruner, because I try to be efficient about my pruning. I don't want to overwork myself. I don't want to fight with the tree. So I start keeping an eye on that. So one of the things I do, and I'm giving you here, are my tips about pruning. You know, on some websites they say pruning winter, okay, but I am gonna prune according with my experience. So the citrus, you can prune citrus anytime from spring to fall is my suggestion. Spring to fall. And the reason is I am wearing, and I give you here the best of spring and the best of fall. So what I am giving you is the way I kind of work the citrus, because citrus grows so strong. If you are trying to control them, it's a little bit hard. So just remember that you want to prune from spring after any danger of frost has happened, and you want to prune in summer. You can prune in summer and in fall, but you want to be aware of sunburn because they do get sunburn. So the way that I put it, I'm expressing it here, you're gonna see how I work for the plants not to get frost and not to get sunburn. So I am giving you a pruning budget. So this budget, I know it's kind of like sounds funny and everything, but the idea I want to give you is how much you prune it, and then you can see how the reaction is going to be. So what happens is when you prune really strong your trees, citrus can't take it. They will grow from it. What happens is the growth that they get is a reactive growth. So they send these really strong shoots. If you over prune your citrus, they're gonna send these strong shoots, really long and leggy. they are not going to produce any fruit, and they are not going to produce any flowers. And if you prune it really strong, you can lose your fruit and flower for 1 to 2 years. Even though the cycle of the plant is supposed to be 6 weeks, you are gonna, if you prune it too strong, you're gonna have a strong reaction, really strong reaction. So you wanna be aware of that. So this pruning budget I am giving to you is so you can actually control your tree and still have fruit and flowers throughout the year. So, and give you an idea of what I mean with cut a little bit and cut a lot. So if I say cut a little bit, or cut the minimum, it will be 15 to 20%. And if you are cutting like, okay, we're gonna do a major pruning, then I am talking about 35%. And remember, because you have, in this case, you will have 3 seasons to prune: spring, summer, and fall. If you need to control it, it will be better that you actually take these 3 seasons to prune instead of hacking your tree at once. Because and then wait for next year, because you are going to have a bigger tree, because they are going to overreact and you're not going to have fruit. So try to prune less, more often. So usually in my work, in my company, we do 2 times a year. So in a spring pruning, I do it early in the spring. So what happens is, when I am pruning right now, yes, I am cutting a little bit of the flowers. I get it. I am cutting some of that growth. Yes, I am. And I am cutting some of the fruit that is hanging there. Yes, all of them I'm doing. But it's kind of like a maintenance. I don't want to have a lot of fruit in the tree right now, because they are going to be producing fruit. So I am going to start clearing it out, the space for the new growth and the new fruit. I am going to be cutting some of the flowers, because the tree is going to produce more flowers. So if for example, oranges, if I have an orange that produce flowers at once and fruit at once, and my client is, how do I do with this orange that produce so much fruit, and then like I don't have fruit like in certain times of the year? So what I do is I try to make it that if I prune in spring some of those flowers, the tree is going to still grow and produce fruits and produce flowers later on. So you actually have a whole year flowers instead of just one time. So in my spring pruning, I do my structural cuts, meaning, and I'm going to show you what I mean with this later on with like specifics, but I am going to do my big cuts in spring. And the reason why I do my big cuts in spring is because like that, the tree has time to react and to wall off the wounds before the cold weather comes. So I don't do a structural pruning in fall. I do a structural pruning in spring and summer. In summer, I am a little bit careful, just because you don't want to open up and have sunburn. But the earlier that you do your big cuts, the better. If you have to, no? If you are letting your tree grow, so then if you don't have to do big cuts, you don't have to. Reduce the tree height. I do that in spring. Why? Because when you reduce your tree height, the height of your tree, you are cutting and you are exposing that bark to sunlight. So my height, I reduce it in spring, so like that, the tree doesn't get sunburned. I don't reduce it in fall because I am gonna have like exposed wood that has been protected, and then it gets sunburned and then it gets frostbite. So I do my strong reduction in height in spring. And then I do canopy thinning. So for one of the things about canopy thinning at the tops and the outsides is the citrus, if they have been kind of neglected for a year or 2 or 3, what happens is you have a lot of that growth in the outer sections of the tree, not the inside sections of the tree. So, and that is normal, and that is going to always happen with them. So what I try to do is I try to balance that, because that helps me for the reduction if I need to. Also helps me to have the fruit closer to the trunk and closer to the main branches instead of having leggy branches and the growth at the end, but the growth and the fruit at the end. So I always do that opening at the tops and the outside areas at a spring, in a springtime. So like that, the tree has that whole spring and summer and fall to be able to grow something in the inside. So for next year, when I'm cutting, I have something to cut too. So now so then here I'm putting my big budget. My big budget is 35%. So believe it or not, in spring, I'm actually doing the big pruning of the year for these trees. Like the big pruning, not 35. I'm not hacking my trees. If you really need to do a renovation, yes, I will do my renovation in spring as well. Renovation means you're gonna cut really, really strong. So yes, do it in spring as well. But if you don't need to, you don't have to. Fall pruning. The fall pruning, so in here I have early fall to mid fall. Don't wait too long in the fall to do your pruning. Again, so what happens is if you wait too long and you cut a big cut, you have that opening, and if it's cold, that is when you get that frostbite. So you want to be aware of that. If you are doing a spring pruning, so then if you're doing 2 prunings a year, so my second pruning has a smaller budget. So I'm not cutting as much unless I really need it, but I don't usually need it. So I'm cut a little bit less. I'm doing my follow-up pruning. So my reduction, I'm gonna show a little bit how I reduce the tops, and that is a follow-up pruning because they are gonna have some growth that happen in those 6 months. So I'm gonna show you that. And I do canopy thinning, but I do the canopy thinning in the lower sections of the tree. So you see, in the spring, I work at the tops and the outer sections. In fall, I do the insides and the bottoms. So that helps for protecting the plant from frost and me controlling it. So sometimes my tree looks a little bit odd. Yes, it does. And I'm gonna show you my odd looking trees, but it's a process. Gardening is always a process. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't put the presenting. Okay, so now, how to do a good cuts. We always talk about this, and I do, if you learn something in this class, learn how to do good cuts. I have few citrus that produce the best oranges, but they, get stressed every winter and every climate change that happens, or every, change of weather. Citrus that had really bad cuts, are really like bad wounds in the trunks. They show a lot of stress with any changes in the climate. So if you do good cuts, and that is gonna help you and your tree in the long run. So what do I mean with good cuts? So don't leave stubs. Usually we want to cut, and in the pictures I'm going to show you throughout the presentation, good cuts and how they are walling off. So in this case, we want to cut right above the collar. So the collar in the citrus are a little bit difficult to see. I put this line, but this line should be here, but I put it there just because I want you to show a little bit of that collar. So the collar will be this swollen area. Sometimes, the texture change, and you see how this one goes up and this one goes a little bit with the growth of the plant, of the branch. So you can look for that. So try to close this right above the collar. You don't want to cut the collar. You don't want to go and do like a cut like this and cut the collar, because then it's going to take longer for the plant to heal as well. You want to cut to something. You want to cut to a leaf. You want to cut to a branch or a branchlet. So pretty much branchlet is a secondary branch. and you want to cut to the trunk. So that means you're cutting the branch. So in this case, if this is the trunk, I'm cutting to the trunk. In this, I am in here, this example is cutting to a branchlet. So this is a whole branch and I'm cutting to a branchlet. This is a branchlet. In this case, you are not gonna have a collar. So what you wanna do is you wanna go with the angle of the branch you are leaving. So in this case, this is my branch and I'm gonna cut right there. And I'm gonna show few other cuts. Don't worry about no understanding in this one. I'm gonna show you later on. You wanna have good transitions. And what that means is the branch that you're cutting and the branch that you're cutting to, you wanna be closer in size. You don't wanna cut from the trunk to the leaf. That is a really strong transition. So they are two different apart in size. And so what is gonna happen is your reaction is gonna be different. You're gonna have a lot of shoots and a lot of bad attached branches. So you wanna have good transitions, and the better the transition it is, the more natural growth the plant is gonna have. I know that citrus have this crazy growth and we're gonna see it, but if you follow this, you're gonna be able to have a more normal growth. When you are cutting to a branchlet, you are also selecting a direction. So if I decided, well, you know what, in this way I want to go up, so then you go, if you go to this branch, and sometimes you do want to go up. In this case, if you want to go down or to the side, so you can cut here, and then you will select this side. If let's say that the path is here, so then maybe you want to cut to this one. So you want to come and cut here, and you select to the one that is going to the other side. So remember, when you are selecting a branch to cut to, you are selecting a direction that you want your plant or your branch to grow. So that helps you in the training of your tree. I'd say that, and I said that too. So now pruning a single trunk citrus. So the reason why I put single trunk versus multi-trunks is because, you know, lemon majors had the tendency to have like many main scaffolds. So sometimes people get confused about single trunk or multi-trunk. In this case, what I want to say is just, you know, like citrus break a little bit the rules of pruning, but you know, it's the nature of the beast, and you wanna work with that. So in this case, I'm showing two examples of plants where you have like your major trunk. This is my major trunk, and this is my major trunk, and I have my scaffolds. So those are my major scaffolds. This is what I call my structure. And please just be mindful and be kind, that it's really hard to take pics of citrus. So doesn't me taking these pics, and it took me like 3 people to remove the branches, move them so I can take the picture. So anyway, so the one thing I try to do is I try to always focus in my structure and see what I need. When I look at the citrus, because they are so full of leaves, people don't know how to start. So if you don't know how to start, just start from the trunk and move to every branch that you have and see where they are, how they relate to each other, if they are growing in the right place, in the right way, and how they are developing. So the same thing here. So this is my main trunk. I have my branches growing from here. I have another ones here. So just try to give a space to the branches. Remember, thinking the 5-year goal, maybe in the 2-year goal. If the 5 is too difficult, thinking 2 years goal. So I try to at least leave, you know, between branches, and I'm talking about my main scaffolds, my structure. I want to leave, you know, 8 inches, 1 foot distance between them, because citrus grows so dense and so thick and so proliferous. I actually try to leave big spaces between them. So, and I don't do that at once. I'm going to show you how little by little I start training them. So when I am looking at my citrus, I'm not looking at the foliage. I am looking at the main scapholes and how they move and how they are located and how they relate to each other. I'm also looking at like having one scaffold for every point that they are growing. So in this case, for example, I have one, I have two, and I have the trunk. So, okay, maximum 2 scaffolds, but I want to have only one scaffold for a point of growth. So I don't want to have like a bunch of branches growing in here. And I'm going to show you how I start that process. So a structure, look at your main scaffolds. Now, the canopy thinning. So this is like, let's say that this is a smaller tree. Like your tree, your trunk is this big, or your main scaffolds are this big and not as big as the one, not as big as this and this, but they are like, these are your main scaffolds. So when you're looking at your main scaffolds and I am thinking ahead, I am gonna prune all these little things. So all this red or whatever color it is, those are the ones I'm pruning. So in here, for example, last year, I pruned this one. This is a cut that I did so well that is already walling off. This is another cut that I did so well that is already walling off. So it's important that these cuts are done good because the tree wall off the wounds. So there is no an open wound for insects or diseases to get in. And 2, the tree is not putting so much energy on it. So I am looking at my structure and I say, okay, well, this branch is going in, but there is a space to be there. So I'm going to cut this little one. I'm not cutting the big one. I'm cutting the little one. So I have 2. I have 1. Oh, sorry. I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 branches here. So I'm going to say, okay, right now, I just want these 2 to grow. And I'm going to leave 2 just because they are going opposite sides. So it's perfect. If both of them were growing like these 2 are growing, I am going to cut 1. So in this case, I go and say, okay, these 2 are okay. I'm going to cut this little thingy. I didn't put something there because I didn't see it, but anyway, I will cut this one. Then I have these other 2 kind of like growing, again, 1 too many branches in one point. So I'm going to take the one that is growing in. And if I look, I have 1 exactly going in, like going to the same side in the same way, direction wise, parallel. So I'm going to say, well, I don't need that. So I'm going to cut this one. Why I select this one? Because it's close to this one. So like that, I have that spacing I'm making. And maybe this is 2 inches of space. It's fine. So then the same thing happened with here. So in this case, I am going to cut this one. I'm going to cut the small one. Why? Because I am generating my structure. Let's say that in this case, I'm generating my structure. That is the example I'm giving you. So in this case, I'm going to go with leaving the strong ones, cutting the little ones. If I am actually trying to reduce the tree, I may end up cutting the strong one and leaving the little one. That is why it's important that you remember what is your goal of your pruning. In this case, I am going to try to leave 1 branch for each point of growth. So when I mean point of growth is this little, where the branch meets the trunk or meet the branch that is the point of growth. I want 1 branch, maximum 2 for citrus, but no more than that. So in this case, if this is the canopy, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna cut it. And if I have to do like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe I'm doing 6 cuts in one point, maybe I'm gonna back up and look at the structure better and see if I can go farther in with my cut. And that's something that you wanna see. The other thing about thinning the canopy, for example, this is a normal way that the citrus will grow. This is not that somebody did something wrong. This is not that the tree is overreacting. This is the way that they are. And so we work with them. I am not gonna leave them like that, but I am gonna cut them. So the first cut I did is I'm gonna cut this one, which is the dead, is right here. This is the close-up. The other cut I'm gonna do is you see that this one is coming in and going out. I have 2 branches I wanna leave. I wanna leave this branch. I wanna leave this branch. because those are my good branches. So I am gonna cut this one. I am gonna cut these 3. You see how many they have in one point? I'm gonna leave just these 2. So I'm gonna cut this, and this. This cut is gonna be a little bit weird because it's growing weird. So at the end, you're gonna have kind of like this cut. So I'm gonna, it's gonna be like it's gonna look like a figure 8 cut, but it's gonna be like that. And that is something that you're gonna be dealing with citrus a lot. They're really, sometimes it's really difficult to get there. So this is 1 cut, this is 2 cut, this is my 3rd cut. I have 2 more branches here. So in this case, I'm just gonna do these 3 cuts and leave it there. And maybe in summer, I come and cut these 2. So I am giving you the example and how to cut strong, but not too strong that the tree is gonna overreact. So I already cut 4 branches in one point. 4 branches in one point is good enough. I'm gonna leave this and this for later to cut. And I'm gonna make sure from the next season or next fall. It can be in summer or fall that you cut these other 2. So thinning the canopy. This is another example of how, like, you know, I'm not giving you the 3 C's, but you know, the 3 C's as crowding, competing, and crossing. But because citrus grow in the way that they grow, I decided not to do it, but I am putting it here because if you read in other places or if you hear other people, they are gonna talk about the 3 C's. So in this case, I am gonna say, if you have, right now we have 3 major branches here grown. So if I am doing my spring pruning, I am gonna cut the big one, and then maybe later on, I'm gonna cut these 2 in the next season, and I'm gonna leave these 2. So that is a lot of, this is a lot of the structural pruning I do, and I still work in my budget of 35%. So that is why I select some. I cut here, I cut here, I cut here, and I don't fix everything at once. I am doing 3, 4, 2, 3 cuts here, 2, 3 cuts here, 2, 3 cuts here. Well, I do 1 here. So that is the way that I'm able to control it. So that one, the other thing I do is with citrus. So I have here the final, I'm gonna go back to the other slides, but I wanna show you this. I have here the final look of the spring pruning. So I'm not, so you look at it and it looks pretty full, but it looks like you can see through, you know, you have openings, spaces. If you look, you are not seeing any holes per se, you know, you cannot see through in a way that you can totally see a hole in the branches. That may be a little bit too strong, and you're gonna have a lot of shooting from there and no fruiting. So one of the things I do is, like I want to show here, is this one is a tree that I am letting it grow taller. So I am using the self-training here. So that is when I say, you know, or here I have lower branches. Well, in this case, in these 2 cases, I want lower branches because we are trying the dog not to go under the tree. So he doesn't like to go under the trees when the lower branches are there. So we're keeping that, we're working with nature, and we're keeping these tops like that. I'm not rounding in the plant. Why? Because these tops, and I'm gonna show you in a live sample, these tops are doing, I am hoping that they do the self training. So what happened is, the way it works is these branches go up. With the weight of the fruit, the branches start going down. At the time that, because the fruit takes 6 to 7 or 8 months, a little bit longer this year for some reason, to ripen. So then the branch is already having that going down habit. So I sometimes not sometimes, but with citrus, I actually let those branches, let the fruit train the branches. So it is important that you think and consider that. At the beginning, when I start pruning, I start pruning all those branches, and then I realized that you can actually do that. So I'm gonna show it here. In this, you can see the branch. So in this case, the branch was, I don't know if you guys can see it. Let me just stand up and then show the branch. If the fruit was not here, the branch will be going something like this. With the fruit, the branch goes down and hangs. So you can see how it's hanging, hopefully. Yeah. So what is going to happen is this is going to be there for 7 months. So in these 7 months, there is going to be a growth. Where the growth is going to happen, the new growth is going to happen here. So there is going to be some growth in here. So, well, let me just draw it because this is not clear. So the branch is growing. You have your branch, and you have your branch growing like this. And these are your leaves. And these are the other branches. So these are the leaves. So then the fruit is going to start growing. The flowers are produced here. So when the flowers produce the fruit is going to be heavy enough that this, well, is going to go down with the fruit. So hopefully this is clear enough. With the fruit, this is the fruit. So the next growth that is going to happen with the fruit is there, getting ripened, is it's going to be growth here. And this growth is going to start going up. So this is my next growth. And then when they produce the flowers here, the fruit here, the growth is going to go like that. So I actually use, because the fruit is going to be here. So I actually use that self-draining for oranges, because what happens is when they get trained to be in that shape. When they produce the flowers, they are already established like that. They're gonna break less. Pretty much, they themselves train themselves structurally in the inside of the branch to be strong enough to take that weight because of the form, because of the form of the branch. So that is one of the self-prunings I try to use in like grapes and orange, and even in the lemons. If the branch for any reason is showing, oh, I have to do this again. If the branch, any reason, I don't know if this is gonna show, but, oh, I have one that I will show. If I have a branch, just a second. Oh, this one, okay. This is really big, but if I have this branch here that is going up, and with the weight, it twists too much. So you can see how the branch twists. So look at this section. And when the branch has the weight, it will twist. So it's twisting here. That is when I decided, you know what? This is not good, because the twist is gonna split open my bark here, and I don't want it. So in that case, I'm gonna actually cut here and let this get stronger and let this get stronger. Because, you know, the time that they grow longer, they are also growing thicker. So by the time that this goes and grow and develop flowers and produce the fruit, and the fruit is strong to move this one, this branch may be as thick as this. So it is really important to be aware of when you are letting the branch do the self-training, you want to pull the branch. And when the branch is pulled, you wanna see how, when the branch is pulled, you wanna see how the branch moves and twists and what is moving and what is twisted, to see if the tree is gonna be able to take that weight. Because one of the reasons why we prune citrus is to make trees that can hold the fruit without breaking, make them structurally stronger to bear the fruit. So that is one of the things I do. So my clients is like, why you keep pulling the tree like you are pulling their ears? And I'm like, oh, I'm making sure that the branch, if the branches go like this and the branch can take it, so I left the fruit and I let the length. But if the branch goes like that and twist and is twisting here and no in the outer section, so then I reduce it because I know that the twisting is not good for the trunk and the branch is gonna break on me. Okay. So we have that, we saw this, self-pruning. So the other rule that we're breaking with the citrus is I do leave the branches that are going down and I do leave the branches that are going up. So with the citrus, it's more look at your structure, select the branches you want and structurally and let the little ones produce the fruits. The fruits in the citrus produce at the end of the growth. So that is something that you want to make sure that you count on. So at the end, always at the end. Okay, so that is my, I forgot to show you in this picture, you wanna see, oh, you don't see in this picture. In this picture, for example, for the pruning of the single trunks and talking a little bit about, you wanna look a little bit for fall pruning. Sorry, I'm supposed to put fall pruning here. That is one of the things that you wanna follow up. So my follow up for the pruning is, okay, do I have any reactions? I'm gonna go and cut some of the reactions. I'm not doing any structural pruning. I'm just cutting the reactions. So this is the same picture you saw before. You're gonna find out that you're gonna do a lot of repetition. And the other thing about the fall pruning that I say is cutting the tops. So what I do, and that is kind of like my tip for you, is when I'm cutting the tops in the fall versus spring, in the fall, I'm actually coming and looking at the foliage and just cutting here. Tran. I'm not going structurally lower down to cut. I am just cutting right at the top. And the reason why I do that is two reasons. You see how this mandarin is just growing in one section. It's growing in one section because I cut strong that section. It keeps growing strong and I keep cutting it strong. That strong growth, you realize, doesn't have any fruit. Why? Because I'm cutting it strong, so it develops more into growth. And I am gonna cut it right here because I am doing my fall pruning, my follow-up, and I'm getting closer to winter. So I'm protecting my tree not to do any structural, not to go lower and cut it in. I'm just gonna cut it here and leave all this foliage. And in the spring, when I do my structural pruning, I go and look, oh, I cut this branch and I cut it here. And now I go and see where it develops and I go and cut it there. And I cut it at the point of growth. So those are my steps. And I do the thinning of the lower branches like I did the other examples of the thinning, but I am working in my lower section. It's the same thinning and the same principles, but it's in the lower and the insides. Anything that I cut, any major cuts I did like this, or let's say that I come and cut this one. Let's say that I cut this one in this example. Now, I am gonna have a reaction. So what I wanna do is I wanna come inside and look at the reaction, and any, like if they have a lot of growth, I use fall pruning to cut some of that growth Let's say I have 5 branches or 3 branches there. If I have 3, I cut 1. If I have 5, I cut 2 in my fall pruning. So that is one of the prunings I do in fall. For the multi-trunks, that the only thing I have to say is you're gonna follow the same principles. You just remember you're gonna have a lot of that crossing on the multi-trunks, and it is okay. Like for example, in this case, this branch and this branch look like in a point they're gonna cross, and that is okay. I leave them. I just try to make sure that my scaffolds, being main scaffolds or secondary branchlets, both of them, like you can see crossing here and crossing here. But if they are not touching, I'm gonna leave them because that is the nature of the beast. So that is the only different thing I do with multi-trunk pruning. So yeah, any questions?
Okay, this has been amazing. My brain is full right now. I'm trying to process it all. I think we're going to have to take a deeper dive into fertilizers, but I want to first, there are some questions on, well, first of all, does this technique also apply to avocado? Would you consider it? No.
No, because avocado, the growth is different.
Mm-hmm.
The growth is the avocados in the sense that the citrus have, like, you see how they grow 5 and 6 or 8 branches on one point. Avocados will not do that. Avocados have the same the same growth pattern of the, for example, the persimmon or magnolia, something that they will grow one branch and they develop really strong, but it's one branch in every point of growth, and not this crazy growth with twisting and growing. If you don't take care of the avocado, of course it's gonna get thick and it's gonna be crossing, but in general, avocados and citrus are different in that way. The only thing that I will say is follow the pruning in the timing, because they are from the same type of temperature, the origin wise. So you do want to prune avocados from spring to fall.
Okay, and I do want to remind everyone before people start peeling off is that this recording will be available by Tuesday, 3:30. That's March 30th. I won't delete it. I figured that out. So this recording will be available by Tuesday, and that is a really good opportunity to go back and rewind or screenshot or whatever, because I know a lot of people really liked your slides and want to see them again. So just a reminder on that. Also in regards to pruning, a lot of the citrus still have a ton of fruit on it. I mean, do you recommend removing fruit before you prune, or do you recommend removing fruit for the first couple of years while they're growing before you start pruning? Is there a time where you're removing fruit?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when the trees are planted, so I suggest people not to let them fruit for 2 years. And the reason is the weight of the fruit can actually kill the tree, and because they are not established. So I know that people get them full of fruit and they look really cute and everything, but when you plant them, the fruit is gonna get heavy, and usually, most of the time, they tilt the tree. And what happened with the tilting is, if you leave it there, so the first tilting is whatever roots were trying to get established, they got broken. And then, so if you didn't realize that and it was established there, so then you are gonna break the roots again to put it back. And then you're gonna have to tie it. So the thing about not fruiting is, one, the weight of the fruit will kill the tree. 2, the energy that the tree is putting in the fruit should be put in the root system and the growth of the root system. So if you remove that fruit, the tree is jumping that step. It's a cycle that they do. They grow, they produce the flower, and they produce the fruit, and they're putting energy in that. If they don't have fruit, they go back to, okay, what is my next? So it's growing again. So they will grow, and they will grow the roots. So that is really important. When they are newly established, it's good that you actually have frequent watering in your citrus. So you want to have moist soils most of the time. Like at least for the first 3 months, I will say, like water more frequent. And then later on, when to establish your trees, you want to start spacing longer and longer between watering. So like that, they will get settled down, to our climate and our weather. When you have dry weathers and dry spells. So you want to try to do that, but at the beginning, you wanna water a little bit often. The removing of the fruit, I will say, if you can even remove the flowers when it's newly planted, it's even better, because you are jumping 2 steps. You are not even letting the flower be produced, so even better. If you are removing the fruit, so the tree already put some energy on that. It will get established faster. For the pruning, when I do the pruning, yes, some of the fruit, when you are doing the spring pruning and fall pruning follow-up, you are gonna remove some of the fruit, maybe in both times. Mostly in spring is good, because what happens is some of the fruit, if you leave it there because it's not ready and you have fruit coming, the tree gets too heavy. So the branches are gonna break. So a lot of the times I remove the fruit. Fruit thinning for the plant to get more flavor or have bigger size is something that in citrus I don't see much. Like with apples, you totally see that if you have less apples, you get like bigger apples. And so yes, with citrus, I don't see that much. I do have to say that the fruit thinning, I do it if I see my clients is like, don't cut the fruit, but if the branch is way too heavy, I know it's gonna break, I do remove one or two fruits from the clumps. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to say that I mean, it might look pretty with a ton of fruit on it, but you don't want a mature citrus to split in half like I've seen before from being overweighted. It's just terribly sad. So thinning it out, at least you can have sort of an even distribution and still have that color, but just not overloaded on the tree, for sure. Okay. Also, before we get back to fertilizing, what was it? There was, well, I guess maybe we should just go to, there's a lot of fertilizing questions. And I think the thing is there's a lot of different fertilizers for a lot of different reasons. And so it gets really confusing and overwhelming to know if we're just going to have a basic fertilizer schedule of like, okay, we're just going to get like one fertilizer and we're going to apply it every month or whatever it says on the instruction. Do you have, are you saying to use the azalea camellia mix or use the citrus mix? Or do you have a recommendation for one or possibly just 2 regular fertilizers?
Yeah, actually that is one thing that I suggest 3 things for feeding your citrus: the azalea camellia fertilizer, the citrus fertilizer, and the Epsom salts. So those are the 3 things I put. So I start my year with the, well, depending how your tree is looking, So if the trees I showed you in the presentation were a little bit in the yellow side, a little bit with the nitrogen deficiency. So if they're a little bit in the yellow side, I am gonna go with citrus fertilizer first. So I put my citrus, the one that I show, where is it? Well, yeah, the one that says out here in the back. So I'm gonna do my citrus fertilizer. And I put a little bit of it, feed it for 2 months. I leave it there, and then in the 2 months, I'm gonna go with my Celia Camellia fertilizer because it's a little bit more even in the numbers. And then, let's say that I do that 2 months with this, and then in my winter, I am not putting, like in my winter months, I don't put fertilizer, but I do put Epsom salts. And that helps for example, for that yellowing in the general, and the flower production is really, really good. And you can do that for potting and for these three, the azalea, so you do citrus, azalea, and then Epsom salt. So you can do 2 months, 2 months, and then 2 months of that, and maybe let it rest in between. So that is something that I usually suggest to my clients. And with the Epsom salt, you can do, for a tree that is kind of like 4 feet by 4 feet, let's say. So you can put 3 to 4 cups of Epsom salt. And because it's raining at that time, hopefully, so everything that you can do is just sprinkle around the Epsom salt and let it be. The rain will just dissolve that. Dogs doesn't eat it, it's fine. And that is usually how we do with my clients. Yeah.
And to be clear, the Epsom salt is the Solpo mag bag that she showed. So it's the one that, can you show that one again? Because it doesn't say Epsom salt on the bag.
Okay, you could do this. You could do this one, or you can do just the Epsom salt that you use for the bath.
Right. Yeah. No, I just wanted them to be clear because you did show that. So, and it doesn't say that on the box, but that is basically Epsom salt.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I try to do that. So what happened is that Epsom salt in those winter months protects the plant from, you see, like if you, I don't know if you can see, but it doesn't have nitrogen. Right. So what happened is this one will not put new growth in the plant. So I'm not gonna have problem with frost or anything, but it's feeding the plant in the moments that the plant is taking a lot of, because there's a lot of water in the soils. So the plants are taking nutrients, and it's easy to take them, it's easy to deal with. So that is something I do. So with this one, if I use this one because this one is not as strong, there is other ones that are a little bit stronger. So you just really follow the instructions with the Epsom salt. If you are using the Epsom salt that you use for the bath, which is even simpler, so then you just put the 3 cups. But if you are using something that there is another one I didn't go that you guys also sell, there is a little bit stronger, and one of my clients put the whole bag, and it actually killed the tree because it was too strong. Yeah. So, and the tree got killed just because it defoliated, and then it was like too cold, and it got, so.
And in terms of fertilizing citrus in containers, well, first of all, you can definitely grow citrus in containers. There's a few questions on that. And then also, what do you recommend for fertilizing? Do you recommend the same fertilizers for containers, or do you prefer liquid?
I prefer liquid just because it moves faster. I don't have any liquid here. The one thing with liquid that you have to be aware is, again, look at the numbers. In the numbers, so you see these numbers. So in this case, you have a 1-digit number, 553. If your liquid fertilizer is, for example, Maxine, is the numbers are like 18 or 20 or 23 or 32, something like that high. So that means it's really concentrated. So I actually, if I am gonna do fertilizing how we talk, like maybe 2 months, and then we'll rest a little bit, another 2 months, and rest a little bit, another 2 months. So in that case, you do wanna dilute it a little bit, you know? So if you're gonna do often fertilizing, so then dilute it, so you don't burn the root system or put too much in the plant, because sometimes the plants can actually be over fertilized. I actually by mistake over fertilized an orange tree, and it ended up being really stressed in winter, because the gardener fertilized it, and then I went and fertilized it, and then he fertilized it, and we didn't know we were overlapping. And then so instead of the plant growing, the plant was defoliating. So yeah, but you do. But if you don't do if you don't like liquid, you can use these two, like these two. These two I would recommend for sure. Because they are really soft. Actually, the numbers are perfect. They are not too high, and you can just put it there. Like, you know, whatever the suggestion is, I think it's like half cup or something for a planter, and you put it there every 2 months, every month, and it will.
And it is hard to burn the plant with organic fertilizer versus synthetic. Just like she's saying, like you'll notice synthetic fertilizers will have numbers that are above 20 or 30 on them. And that's a really high concentration. It's not a natural concentration. And so the potential to burn the plant can be greater with synthetic fertilizers. I know that fertilizer is a big and really important topic, and there is a ton of questions. I do want to let you know that we did do a webinar on fertilizer, that if you really want to take, you know, just a fertilizer class, that webinar is available on our website. The recording is, and that goes over in more depth the different numbers and what they do and whatnot. I'm going to ask one last question, and maybe this isn't the best note to end on, but it's definitely pertinent to citrus. And how do we deter rats from eating the fruit? Because we know this is an issue, and it's not a fun one. So do you have a good recommendation?
Yeah, you know, like it has been increasing, and I was just listening to this podcast about rats, believe it or not, because I was kind of like, it was driving me crazy. I go to every house, and even the pictures I showed you guys and the things I brought here were having those rats chewing. So yes, there are two things I do. If I have, like, you see those branches, like those trunks that actually like really visible, you can actually paint them. It's called I think VI organic. Let me put it here. So I think it's VI organic. I'm dyslexic, so it can be IV. So this is a paint that you can paint your plant. So you paint the trunks with this, and this will protect it for like a year, and that helps from sunburn and from rats. It is kind of like a process to paint that, and the whole thing is a powder that you put some castor oil, and you have to put water and mix it, and then go and brush and paint. So the good thing, I'm like, I had a client in this house that I took these pictures, and the rats just started to eat it, but the citrus was so thick and full with branches that painting was really, really difficult. So we actually had to start doing the pruning and then really having to paint. In some of my other citrus, it was way easier to put that paint, which is not like a paint from the house. It's actually something that In Colombia they use cal and they go and paint with cal and it gets washed and you paint it again. But you can do the paint. The other thing I do is when it's just being, because that retracts, you cannot paint every little single branch. You are painting the main structures. So sometimes when the rats are making a home in these trees, pretty much they come and come and come. And so sometimes this paint doesn't help that much. I did have a lemon that they were just going for it, and it was really hard to make them stop. So what I did is I just covered the branch. So this is the branch, and I just wrap the branches in the main sections with metal, like a metal match. So I'm not like wrapping them, but I'm covering it. So it took me like a whole day to fully cover this tree, but it was a tree that the rats, they start getting used to certain trees and start going there often. So that's what I did with this one, but I am using that paint in other ones, and it seems like I am not gonna say that fully stop them, because I had not find anything that fully stopped them. The metal thing fully stopped them in the place I'm able to put the metal.
Yeah.
But this really, like, if they find something else to eat, they stop going there. If they don't find anything else to eat, they keep coming.
Yeah, I have to say, I haven't tried the paint yet, but we've just doing that aluminum flashing around the base of the tree. They just can't even climb on it.
Yeah.
So like you said, I mean, that's a really good deterrent. And then also seeing if branches are connecting to like the fence line or like another tree or something that they can hop into the tree that way, and sort of reducing the branches that way will help too. And keeping the ground underneath clear of fallen fruit and stuff like that. So anyway,
Yeah.
not the funnest ending to a presentation, but we had to bring up the rats when we were talking about citrus. So I can't thank you enough. Always, your presentations are so packed with so much incredible information, and I learn a lot, just I'm sure as everyone else does, and so much great feedback. Just a reminder too to everyone that you can email either Elizabeth or myself if there were questions that we didn't address. We want to be sure that you feel prepared for your spring season or your citrus season or whatever. So we're here to support. And it's a nice day. So everyone get out and get in your garden and have a great day. Thanks again, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone. Happy Saturday.
Happy pruning.
Happy pruning.
Bye.